The first time I walked through the front door of the house on Birch Street, I thought I was home. Not just a place to live. Home. The kind of home I had spent my entire 29 years searching for, the kind that existed in movies and novels and the carefully curated Instagram feeds of people who seemed to have figured out something I never could. It was a Craftsman, built in 1923, with original hardwood floors and built-in bookshelves, and a wraparound porch that caught the afternoon light like a hand-cupping warmth. The realtor had warned me about the price. A fixer-upper, she called it, though the fixes would cost more than the purchase price. But I didn't care. I had just sold my tech startup, the little app that nobody believed in until suddenly everybody did, and I had money for the first time in my life. Real money. More money than my mother had made in 20 years of double shifts at the diner. More money than my father had gambled away before he left us when I was 6. I bought the house on a Tuesday. I spent Wednesday crying on the porch steps, overwhelmed by the reality of owning something that couldn't be taken away, something that was mine, something that would still be mine when everything else fell apart. I met David 3 weeks later. He was delivering my new washer, or rather, he was the friend of the delivery guy who had gotten roped into helping when the original crew called in sick. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of hands that looked like they could build or fix anything, and a smile that crinkled the corners of his brown eyes in a way that made my stomach feel strange and warm. "Nice place," he said, wiping sweat from his forehead as we stood in the empty kitchen, the washer humming its first cycle. "Old houses like this, they have character, soul. My mom's place is the same vintage. She'd love this." "Your mom?" "Yeah. She raised me and my brother alone after my dad left. Worked 2 jobs. Never complained. She's—" He paused, searching for the word. "She's everything. The reason I'm who I am." I should have heard the warning in that pause, the way his voice changed when he said she's everything, the weight he gave to words that should have been simple gratitude. But I was lonely in my big empty house, and he was kind, and his hands were calloused from honest work, and when he asked me to coffee I said yes, before I could talk myself out of it. We were married 8 months later. Small ceremony at the courthouse. My idea, not his. I had no family to invite, and David's only family was his mother, Patricia, and his younger brother, Caleb. Patricia couldn't afford to travel, David explained, and Caleb was going through some stuff, and probably wouldn't come even if he could. So it was just us, a judge, and 2 strangers we pulled in from the hallway to serve as witnesses. I didn't mind. I told myself I didn't mind. I had spent my life alone. Foster homes, group homes, the tiny apartment I shared with 3 roommates while I built the app that would change everything. And I was used to small, used to quiet, used to celebrations that felt more like survival than joy. What I minded came later. Patricia arrived 3 weeks after the wedding. David had mentioned that his mother was struggling, her health, her finances, the old house that needed repairs she couldn't afford, and I had suggested, casually, that she might visit. Get to know me. See the house that David now called home, though his name was nowhere on the deed. I had imagined a weekend. Maybe a long weekend if we got along. I had imagined a woman like my own mother, tired, kind, grateful for any help, careful not to overstay her welcome. Patricia stayed for 3 months, and she never left. She arrived with 2 suitcases and a cardboard box of photo albums, her gray hair pinned in a tight bun, her face sharp-featured and handsome in the way of women who had been beautiful once and had learned to weaponize what remained. She hugged David like she was rescuing him from drowning. She looked at me like I was the water. "So you're the one who bought my David a house," she said, settling into the armchair I had reupholstered myself, the one that caught the afternoon light. "How generous." "I bought it for myself," I said. "David moved in after we got married." "Of course." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "I'm sure that's exactly how it happened." The first month was a test of endurance. Patricia critiqued everything: The way I loaded the dishwasher, the brand of coffee I bought, the temperature I kept the house, the fact that I worked from home instead of taking care of your husband like a proper wife. She rearranged my kitchen cabinets without asking. She threw away my clothes that she deemed inappropriate, meaning anything that showed my knees or shoulders. She told David, loudly and often, that she was worried about his happiness, that she had never seen him so stressed, that she hoped he knew she was always there for him, no matter what. David said nothing. He smiled his crinkled eye smile and told me to be patient. She's old-fashioned, he explained, night after night, as we lay in bed with Patricia's disapproval seeping through the walls like a gas leak. She doesn't understand your world, the tech stuff, the money. She thinks women should be different, but she'll come around. She just needs time. I gave her time. I gave her 3 months of time, of biting my tongue, of letting her claim my house as hers in conversation with neighbors and delivery people, and the mailman who she insisted on greeting every morning because that's what proper homeowners do. And then I gave her something I shouldn't have. Patricia, I said, one evening over dinner, a dinner I had cooked, in a kitchen she had rearranged, at a table in a house that was mine. I know the house needs work, the roof, the plumbing, the electrical. I've been thinking, maybe I should handle the finances, the mortgage, the taxes, the repairs. So you and David don't have to worry. I meant it as peace, as a bridge, as a way of saying I have money, I have resources. Let me take care of this so we can all stop fighting about who belongs here. Patricia's eyes lit up, not with gratitude, with something else, something I was too naive to recognize. How much is the mortgage? She asked. About $11,000 a month, with taxes and insurance. 11,000? She rolled the number around in her mouth like a fine wine. And you've been paying that alone? Yes. It's my house. My responsibility. Of course. She reached across the table and patted my hand, the first time she had touched me without obvious reluctance. You're a good girl, Claire. A generous girl. David is lucky to have you. She started calling it our house after that. Not Claire's house, or even David and Claire's house. Our house, the family home, the place she had raised her boys, she told the neighbors, though she had never lived there before her arrival. The place she had sacrificed everything for, she told the mailman, though the sacrifice had been entirely mine. And I let her. Because I was desperate for her approval, for David's peace, for the family I had never had, and had convinced myself I could build if I just gave enough, paid enough, endured enough. I paid the mortgage for 3 years. $11,000 a month, every month, drawn from the account that held the remnants of my startup sale. I paid for the new roof when the old one leaked. I paid for the plumbing overhaul when the pipes burst. I paid for the electrical upgrade, the kitchen renovation, the landscaping, the property taxes that climbed higher every year. I paid, and I paid, and I paid. And I never once put David's name on the deed. I told myself it was caution, my lawyer's advice, my accountant's warning, the sensible prudence of a woman who had learned early that nothing was permanent. But the truth was deeper and uglier. Some part of me, the part that had survived foster homes and group homes and the tiny apartment with 3 roommates, knew that David was not my partner. Not really. He was Patricia's son first, her defender always, her priority in every situation where a choice had to be made between his wife and his mother. He never asked about the money, never offered to contribute, never questioned why the mortgage payments came from my account alone, why his name was absent from every document, why the house that he called home was legally, financially, entirely mine. He just smiled his crinkled eye smile and told me I was amazing and so capable and the reason everything worked. I told myself that was enough. I told myself that love didn't require equality, that partnership didn't require contribution, that I was lucky to have someone who loved me even if he couldn't, or wouldn't, stand up to his mother. I told myself that until the night Patricia called the family meeting. It was a Thursday. I remember because Thursdays were my longest work days. Back-to-back video calls with clients on the West Coast, presentations, negotiations, the constant performance of competence that my career demanded. I had been in my office since 7 in the morning, surviving on coffee and determination, and I emerged at 8 in the evening to find Patricia, David, and a stranger sitting in my living room. The stranger was young, maybe 24, with Patricia's sharp features and David's broad shoulders. He was slouched on my couch, the one I had bought, the one Patricia had covered with a throw she claimed was more appropriate. And he was looking at his phone with the bored entitlement of someone who had never been told no. "Claire," Patricia said. Her voice was bright, performative, the voice of a hostess welcoming a guest rather than a mother-in-law addressing the woman who paid for her existence. "You're finally done with work. Sit down. We have wonderful news." I looked at David. He was sitting beside his mother, not beside the empty space that had been mine, his eyes avoiding mine with the guilty desperation of a child caught between two warring parents. "What news?" I asked. "Caleb is moving in." Patricia gestured to the stranger who looked up from his phone long enough to offer a lazy wave. "He's finally getting his life together. New job, new start. And he needs a place to stay while he saves for his own place. Just a few months. Maybe 6. A year at most." I stared at her. Then I stared at David. Then I stared at Caleb, who had already returned to his phone, apparently unconcerned with the conversation about his future housing. "Patricia," I said carefully, "this house has 3 bedrooms. You have one. David and I have one. The third is my office. Where exactly is Caleb supposed to sleep?" "Your office, of course." Patricia's smile didn't waver. "You can work from the kitchen table, or the bedroom, or," she waved a hand, "one of those coffee shops you like so much. You're never really here anyway, always on your computer. It won't be a hardship." "My office has my equipment, my files, my—" "Claire." David's voice was soft, pleading, the voice he used when he wanted me to back down without actually asking. "It's just temporary. Caleb really needs this. He's family." "Family," I repeated. I looked at Caleb, who was scrolling through something on his phone, his face blank with disinterest. "I've met him once. At our wedding. He didn't come to the ceremony, but he showed up at the reception for the free food. Is that family?" "Claire!" Patricia's voice sharpened, the mask slipping to reveal the steel underneath. "Caleb is David's brother. My son. That makes him family, whether you approve or not. And in this family, we take care of each other. We don't let money or space or petty jealousy get in the way of what's important." "Petty jealousy?" My voice was rising, the careful control of 3 years cracking under the weight of this absurdity. "Patricia, I pay $11,000 a month for this house. I paid for the roof, the plumbing, the kitchen, everything. This is my house, mine. And you're telling me that I need to give up my office, my workspace, the place where I earn the money that pays for all of this, so that your younger son, who I've met once, can live here rent-free for maybe a year? Your house?" Patricia's laugh was sharp, disbelieving. "Claire, dear, this is David's home, his family home. You may have paid for some things, and we're all grateful for your generosity. But let's not pretend that makes you the owner. David is the man of this house. His name is on everything that matters." I looked at David. He was staring at the floor, his jaw tight, his hands clenched in his lap. "David," I said, "tell her. Tell her whose name is on the deed. Tell her who pays the mortgage. Tell her—" "Claire, stop." He finally looked at me, and what I saw in his brown eyes made my stomach drop. Not guilt, not conflict, resentment. "You're embarrassing yourself. And me. Mom is right. This is a family decision, and you're making it about money, about control, about proving that you're somehow better than us because you have more." "Better than David?" I never said. "You didn't have to." He stood up, and Patricia stood with him, a unified front, mother and son against the intruder who had never really belonged. Mom and Caleb are moving into your office. Tomorrow. You can work from the kitchen or a coffee shop or, I don't know, Claire. Figure it out. You're good at figuring things out. That's what you do. He walked toward the stairs. Patricia followed, her hand on his arm, her eyes meeting mine with a look of triumph so naked it was almost beautiful in its honesty. Caleb remained on the couch, still scrolling, still bored, still oblivious to the fact that he had just become a weapon in a war I hadn't known I was fighting. David, I called after them. David, please, we need to talk about this. Just us. Without. There's nothing to talk about, he said, not turning around. The decision is made. Unless you want to be the person who throws family out on the street. Is that who you are, Claire? Is that the person you want to be? They disappeared upstairs. I stood in my living room, in my house, that I had paid for with money I had earned through work that Patricia dismissed and David didn't understand. And I felt something shift inside me. Not grief, not even anger, though anger was there, hot and ready. Clarity. The kind of clarity that comes when you finally see a pattern you have been denying for years. The kind that reveals every compromise, every silence, every check you wrote, and every insult you swallowed as part of a single, coherent picture. I was not Patricia's daughter-in-law. I was not David's partner. I was not a member of this family, no matter how much I paid or how hard I tried or how many times I told myself that love was worth any price. I was a resource, a bank account with a pulse, a convenient solution to problems I hadn't created and wasn't allowed to complain about. And I was done. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the kitchen Patricia had rearranged, the kitchen where I would now be expected to work. And I made a list. Not a list of grievances, though I had enough to fill a book. A list of facts. The deed. In my name only. Purchased before marriage, maintained with separate funds, protected by a prenuptial agreement that David had signed without reading because, you're the lawyer, Claire, I trust you. The mortgage. $11,247 a month, auto-drafted from my account. Never missed, never late, never shared. The taxes. $12,000 annually, paid by me. The insurance. Homeowners, flood, liability, $8,000 a year, my name as sole insured. The improvements, roof, plumbing, electrical, kitchen, landscaping, $147,000 over 3 years, all from my accounts, all documented. The utilities, electric, gas, water, internet, $2,000 a month, my credit card. Total contribution to the family home, approximately $412,000 over 3 years. Total contribution from David, 0. Total contribution from Patricia, 0. Total contribution from Caleb, negative. He had eaten my food, used my internet, and left cigarette burns on my porch furniture during his one visit. I looked at the numbers until they stopped being shocking and started being simply true. Then I made phone calls. The first was to my realtor, Maria Chen. No relation, though Patricia had always assumed we were family and had treated her with the same possessive warmth she showed everyone who might be useful. Maria, I said, I want to sell the house on Birch Street. A pause. Claire, it's 3 a.m. I know, I'm sorry, but I need to know. Can you list it? Quickly? Of course, but David? Patricia? What about? They're not on the deed, Maria. They're not on the mortgage. They're not on anything. And as of tonight, they're not my problem. Another pause, longer this time. Claire, are you okay? I will be, I said. I need you to do something else. Can you find me a short-term rental? Furnished, flexible lease? Available immediately? I have a listing. Downtown loft. Owner's traveling for 6 months. Needs someone responsible. I'll take it. Sight unseen. I'll wire the deposit in the morning. Claire. Thank you, Maria. I'll call you tomorrow with details about the listing. I hung up. I made more calls. To my bank, stopping the auto draft on the mortgage. To the utility companies, scheduling disconnection in 30 days. To the insurance broker, canceling all policies effective immediately. To a moving company, booking a crew for Saturday, 2 days away. Each call was a stone removed from a wall I had built around myself, a wall that had kept me trapped in the illusion of family while the reality drained me dry. At 5 in the morning, I packed a bag. Clothes, laptop, the photo of my mother that Patricia had tried to throw away because it's morbid, Claire, keeping pictures of dead people. I left everything else, the furniture, the dishes, the life I had assembled piece by piece, in the hope that it would eventually feel like home. I wrote a note. Not to David, he didn't deserve explanations. Not to Patricia, she wouldn't understand them. To Caleb, the stranger on my couch, the unwitting weapon in a war he didn't know existed. The house is yours. For 30 days. After that, the bank forecloses, the utilities shut off, and the insurance lapses. Good luck. I left it on the kitchen table, weighted down with the orange I had bought on my first day in the house, dried now, preserved in the back of a cabinet where Patricia never looked, the symbol of a hope that had finally rotted through. I walked out the front door as the sun was rising. I didn't look back. The bank called Patricia on Friday morning. I know because Maria called me, her voice carefully neutral, to report that a very angry older woman had come to her office demanding to know why the mortgage on her son's house was in default. She threatened to sue, Maria said. Said you had stolen the house from David. Said she was going to the police. Did you tell her? I showed her the deed, Claire, the mortgage documents, the payment history. Maria paused, choosing her words. She didn't take it well. She kept saying, "This isn't possible. David is the man of the house. David is the owner." Even when I showed her his signature on the prenup, even when I showed her that his name was nowhere on any document, she wouldn't accept it. And David? She called him. He came to my office. Another pause. Longer this time. He cried, Claire. He sat in my conference room and he cried and he asked me to call you, to tell you he was sorry, that he didn't know, that his mother had always told him the house was in his name, that she had been taking care of the paperwork, since before you were married. I held the phone with both hands, steadying myself against the vertigo of this revelation. Patricia had told David the house was his, had convinced him that he was the owner, the provider, the man of the house, while his wife was merely a guest whose money happened to be convenient. He had believed her. Not out of malice, but out of the same desperate need that had driven me to believe Patricia could be family if I just paid enough. Did he know she was lying? I asked. I don't think so, Maria said. But Claire, he didn't ask either. In 3 years, he never asked to see a document, never checked a statement, never questioned why his name wasn't on anything. He accepted what his mother told him. Because it was easier. Because it made him feel like the man she always said he should be. I closed my eyes. The loft was bright, modern, anonymous. Exactly what I needed. A space without history or memory or the ghost of hope. I could hear traffic below, the hum of a city that didn't know or care about my pain. Tell him I'm sorry too, I said. Sorry that he believed her. Sorry that he chose her. But not sorry enough to undo what I've done. The listing goes live Monday, Maria said. I've already had interest. It's a beautiful house, Claire. Someone will love it. Not me, I said. I loved it once. But love isn't enough when the foundation is rotten. I hung up. I sat in my anonymous loft, in my anonymous chair, and I waited for the next call. It came on Saturday evening. David. I almost didn't answer. Had promised myself I wouldn't, that he was part of a life I was leaving behind, that his tears and his apologies and his mother's lies were no longer my responsibility. But something made me pick up. Some residue of the girl who had fallen in love with a delivery man in an empty kitchen, who had believed that calloused hands and crinkled eyes meant kindness, who had wanted so desperately to belong that she had paid any price. "Claire," he said. His voice was broken, barely recognizable. "Please, please, I need to see you. To explain. To—" "There's nothing to explain, David. Your mother lied. You believed her. You chose her over me, over and over for 3 years. The only thing I don't understand is why you're surprised now." "Because I didn't know." The words came out as a wail, the sound of a child who had finally been caught in a lie too big to deny. "Mom told me. She said you were controlling, that you kept everything in your name to have power over me, that real wives trust their husbands, that I was the villain and she was the victim. And you believed her. Because it was easier than believing that your mother might be wrong. That she might be using you, using both of us, to get what she wanted." Silence. Then softer. "She kicked me out, Claire. After she talked to Maria. After she realized the house was really yours. She said, I was useless. That I couldn't even keep a wife under control. That Caleb was the son she should have relied on. That he was moving into the master bedroom. That I was—" His voice cracked. "That I was nothing. That I had always been nothing." I felt something twist in my chest. Not sympathy. I was done with sympathy. Done with the reflexive need to comfort people who had hurt me. But recognition. The recognition of someone who had also been discarded by Patricia when they stopped being useful. "Where are you?" I asked. "A motel. Near the highway. I don't have anywhere else. I don't have any money. Mom always handled the finances and you never asked questions. Because asking questions would have meant admitting that you weren't the man she told you to be. Claire, please. I know I don't deserve. I know I failed you over and over. But I loved you. I still love you. If you give me another chance, I can change. I can—" No. The word was final. Absolute. The closing of a door that should have been closed years ago. "You don't love me, David. You love the idea of me. The wife who paid for everything, who asked for nothing, who let your mother treat her like a servant and never complained. You love the convenience, the comfort, the freedom from responsibility. But you don't love me. You don't even know me." That's not— It is true. And even if it weren't, even if you really did love me in some way I can't see, love isn't enough. Not when there's no trust. Not when there's no partnership. Not when every crisis reveals that I'm alone, that I'm the only one fighting, that you're standing on the sidelines waiting for me to fix everything and then blaming me when I do. I took a breath. The loft was quiet, the city humming below, my future stretching out before me like an unwritten page. "I'm selling the house, David. The listing goes live Monday. You and your mother and Caleb have 30 days to find somewhere else. After that, the bank forecloses, the utilities shut off, and you'll be evicted. I'm sorry. I am actually sorry that it ends this way. But I didn't choose this ending. You did. Your mother did. Every time you let her insult me, every time you let her take what was mine, every time you chose her comfort over my dignity, you were writing this ending. Claire. Goodbye, David. I hope you find something real someday. Something that isn't built on lies and someone else's money, but it won't be with me." I hung up. I blocked his number. I sat in my anonymous chair in my anonymous loft, and I let myself cry. Not for David, not for Patricia, not for the house on Birch Street with its craftsman details and its wraparound porch and its afternoon light. I cried for the girl I had been, the girl who thought that paying enough could buy belonging, that enduring enough could earn love, that if she just gave everything she had, someone would finally see her and say, "You are enough, you are family, you are home." She was gone now, and in her place was a woman who knew better, who had learned, finally and painfully, that home wasn't a house you bought, or a family you paid for, or a love that demanded everything and gave nothing. Home was yourself, your choices, your boundaries. The quiet certainty that you would never again let anyone make you feel like a guest in your own life. I wiped my eyes. I opened my laptop. I started a new document. Not a list of grievances, not a tally of what I had lost, but a plan. For the business I would build, the life I would create, the family I might someday find. Not through payment and performance, but through mutual choice, mutual respect, mutual love. The phone rang. Maria, with an offer on the house. Above asking price, cash, closing in 30 days. Accept it, I said, and I began again. The sale closed 6 weeks later. I didn't attend the closing. Maria handled everything, her professionalism a shield between me and the finality of what I had done. I didn't drive past the house, didn't look at the listing photos, didn't ask who had bought it or what they had changed. I knew, because Maria told me, that Patricia had refused to leave until the sheriff arrived. That she had screamed about theft and betrayal and, that ungrateful girl who ruined my family. That Caleb had disappeared 2 weeks before eviction, taking the television and some of my jewelry. Small losses, easily replaced. The final petty theft of people who had never understood the difference between borrowing and stealing. I knew that David had tried to find me, had called Maria, had called my old office, had even shown up at the loft building before the doorman turned him away. I knew that he was living in his truck now, working construction jobs for cash, his mother's perfect son, reduced to the kind of existence she had always claimed to have escaped. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel revenge. I felt empty, mostly. The empty of a room after the furniture has been removed. The echoes of a life that no longer fit. And I felt free. The kind of free that comes from knowing you will never again wake up to someone rearranging your kitchen. Never again sit in silence while your husband lets his mother insult you. Never again write a check for $11,000 and pretend it's love. I bought a new house eventually. Smaller, newer, no craftsman details or wraparound porch. Just a clean, bright space with good light and a kitchen I designed myself, and locks on every door that only I could open. I dated, eventually. Cautiously, carefully, with boundaries I enforced and expectations I communicated. Some men couldn't handle it. The independence, the financial autonomy, the refusal to perform gratitude for basic decency. I let them go. Others tried to perform their way past my defenses, offering grand gestures and promises they couldn't keep. I let them go too. And then I met someone who didn't perform, who showed up on time, who split the check without being asked, who listened when I talked about my past without trying to fix it or use it against me, who had his own boundaries, his own history, his own careful way of building trust. His name was Thomas. He was a teacher, like my mother had been, though he taught history rather than English. He had been divorced for 5 years, amicably, and he spoke of his ex-wife with respect rather than resentment. He had no children, no family nearby, no one who expected him to choose them over whoever he loved. We moved slowly. A year of dating before we discussed living together. Another year before we did. A prenuptial agreement that we both read, both discussed, both signed without resentment or performance. When we married, small ceremony, just us and a judge and 2 witnesses pulled from the hallway. I felt something I had never felt before. Not excitement, not relief, not the desperate hope that this time would be different. Peace. The peace of knowing that I was enough. That I had always been enough. That the house on Birch Street and the $11,000 and the 3 years of silence and the final necessary destruction had all been steps on a path that led here. To myself. To Thomas. To a life that was mine, truly mine, built on truth, rather than transaction. Patricia died 2 years later. Heart attack, sudden, the kind of death that arrives without warning and leaves only questions. David called me, the first time in years, his voice rough with grief and alcohol and the same desperate need that had always defined him. "She was wrong about you," he said. at the end. She told me, she said you were the only one who ever really loved me, the only one who didn't want something, and I threw it away because I was too scared to believe her. I didn't know what to say. I didn't owe him comfort, didn't owe him forgiveness, didn't owe him the performance of gratitude for a truth that had come too late to matter. David, I said, I'm sorry for your loss, but I'm not the person who can help you through it. I haven't been that person for a long time. I know, he said. I needed you to know. That she knew. That I know. That I'm sorry, Claire. I'm so sorry. I hung up. I sat in my clean, bright house with my husband who respected me and my kitchen that no one rearranged and my locks that only I could open. And I felt, not forgiveness, not quite, but release. The release of knowing that the story was over. That Patricia's death closed a chapter I had been afraid would never end. That I could finally, fully, let go of the girl who had paid $11,000 a month for the illusion of family and embrace the woman who had learned that some prices were too high, no matter what they promised to buy. Thomas found me there, sitting in the afternoon light that streamed through windows I had chosen myself. He didn't ask what was wrong. He just sat beside me, took my hand, and waited. I used to think, I said, that love was something you earned. That if you paid enough, gave enough, endured enough, someone would finally see you and say, you belong. And now? He asked. Now I think love is something you choose. Every day. Not because you have to, not because you've invested too much to walk away, but because the person you're with makes you more yourself. Not less. He squeezed my hand. Do I make you more yourself? I looked at him, at his kind eyes, his patient presence, his absolute refusal to make me perform gratitude or competence or anything other than exactly what I was. You do, I said, and I hope I do the same for you. You do, he said. Simple, direct. No performance, no calculation, just the truth between two people who had learned to recognize it. We sat in the afternoon light, and I thought of the house on Birch Street, of the orange I had left on the kitchen table, dried and preserved, the symbol of a hope that had rotted through, of Patricia's triumph, and David's tears, and Caleb's bored entitlement, and the sheriff arriving to remove them from a house that had never been theirs. I thought of all of it, and I let it go. Piece by piece, memory by memory, the weight of a life I had built on illusion and dismantled with truth, and I was free.